Hi, this is Stan. Welcome back to the Crow's Nest Railroad. Well, we have a project today. We're going to build this flat car. It's not to scale, it's simply a one-to-one tool for us to haul some things around here on the railroad. So if that sounds like fun, hope you can join us. All right, well, let's start at the beginning. Let's head back into the shop. And of course, there's Kepler chewing up a perfectly good funnel. And here is the very first piece of rolling stock that I built for the Crow's Nest Railroad. It kind of turned out okay. I added just some little finishing touches to it. Got some oak planking on here. So what's going on? Well, I kind of want to put this guy on the shelf for now because I just don't want to beat it up, and I've got a project in mind that I'd just like some sort of a working car. And to tell you the truth, there's a couple different things I want to try. First of all of my rolling stock is about 3 foot 36 inches or so in length. And I want to try something a little closer to 4 feet in length, not quite that far. And I'd like a piece of equipment that I simply could leave out on the railroad and not have to re-rail it all the time. And that spur that we just built is a perfect spot for that. And I'd like it to be just a working car, nothing fancy to look at, something that won't mind if it gets rained on just a little bit. And I just don't want to beat this car up. I've got another project that involves moving some concrete blocks. And so this is a good time to try a couple different things. I want to see how inexpensively we can build a flat car. I'm going to use the trucks off this, so we're going to have to pull these trucks off here. And I'm going to park this in the shed for a while so that it doesn't get ruined. But let's get busy. First thing we've got to do, I want to pull the trucks off and take a look at the geometry underneath. All right, I got some raw numbers. So this center beam here is 36 from end to end. The little bolster area here is 5 inches end to end. And as it turns out, this pin is 5 inches away from the pin for the coupler. So 5 and 5, 36. And here's my little work bins. I would love to be able to get 2 of these on one flat car. So it looks to be about 45 inches is what I would need. And since this is more or less narrow gauge that I'm looking for here, rather than strictly 1 inch to the foot, 14 or 15 inches wide would be just about right. All right, well, we got some rough dimensions now in mind, and time for me to head off to the big box store and brainstorm a little bit and pick up a couple of inexpensive materials. All right, I'm back from the big box store. So I got 4 cedar fence boards and 2 2x3s. Plus I picked up 2 of these Simpson strong ties. And these are going to be used on the little bolster pieces, so that these will be rubbing on this metal. And $24.41. So that's not a bad price for a working flat car, since I already had these trucks. So the plan is then, let's build a frame, an H-frame out of those 2x3s, and then we'll set some bolsters in place, and we will plank it with those cedar boards. And we're going to go 45 inches face to face and 14 inches across. Okay, there are the two 45-inch long frame members. Now I've got a stop block set up for the chop saw, and I want 5 other pieces at 9 inches. Okay, there's our 5 pieces. We're going to come over 22 and a half, and we're going to mark our center line here on both pieces. That's our center line. And then we're going to have a block on the very end. So there's the layout. Our end blocks coming in 7 inches, start the bolster support block, center block, end block in 7 inches to start this bolster block. So we'll get some deck screws and get this thing put together. What do you think, buddy? All right. There's the frame, all screwed together. I used some number 10s by 3 inches long. And you can see here for the bolsters, I put these 2x3 sideways rather than vertical. This is near the top of the frame, so that will recess the trucks up just slightly, so this is not sitting really high. And I measured in 7.5 inches and centered it on that line. And here's the underside. So I've got to attach these plates, but I've also got to drill a hole in this plate and a corresponding hole in this cross member here, and then screw this down so that the trucks can rotate like this. And there is our 5/16 hole in this plate. I actually used 3 different drill bits to step it up to that diameter, drilling through the metal. So let me find the center point of our bolster here, and we'll mount this. I'll use this as a guide to drill a hole through our 2x3. So these are mounted. It doesn't have to be super structurally strong because gravity is squeezing this together, of course, and it's held mostly by this pin, so these little 3/4 inch lath screws are just going to keep it from twisting this way. So before I bore this hole out, I'm going to put a pilot hole down through here, and then we're going to flip the frame over for a second. Using a 3/4 inch Forstner bit, I just put a little recess in there so that the bolt and washer will be below the surface of this. So you can see how these trucks bolt on. This 5/16 pin comes out, goes through the bolster here, and previously I had rounded the end and drilled a hole in the bolt so that this little safety pin here could be installed. And normally you wouldn't have to go through that sort of shenanigans because the whole weight of the car would hold this to the truck. However, 5-inch gauge, small stuff, you pick it up a lot, and it's a pain in the neck to have these fall off, so I just fasten these so that they don't fall. And there's that one. And There seems to be plenty of rotation available. I haven't greased it up yet. We still have a couple more measurements and a couple more jobs to do before I grease it up. But there you go. Already next, while this is all exposed, I'm going to put some good old Crow's Nest Railroad English Castle Gray all over this framework here. So let me get a couple of coats on. And while the paint is drying on the frame, let's set up the chop saw and cut the slats for the top. And there's our stack of planks. Well, let's get them laid out so that I can compute the spacing. The planks over where these bolts are going to be placed will have to be removable. So let's see how well everything fits. There we are, something like that. Got about an inch overhang on the two sides, and I don't know, a little more than a quarter of an inch or so on the ends. Well, let's get these nailed in place, and I got to remember on the third plank in from each end, I've got to make sure that's removable, so I've got to screw it in. And here's a belly up look, all greased up, and hoping that that's enough rotation. Well, we've got another task to do before this car is complete. So I use a link and pin for couplers here. So let me mount one of those on each end, and our standard here is 3 inches up. And there we go. I think this car is ready to go to work. So hopefully this flat wagon will be able to carry a big load as well as my bin loads. Well, let's move it out to the spur. Well, hopefully the next time you see this flat car, it'll be doing some work for me. So, Cap and I say thanks for joining us here on the Crow's Nest Railroad. See you right here next time.